Welcome everyone to the Rolldown, the show where we yap about everything TFT Esports, from grassroots to the pro circuit, from the couch to the crown. We cover it all. My name is CLE, and I'm joined once again by my co-host, the Wizard of Waverly Place himself, Gangly. Welcome to the show. Welcome back.
Yeah, man, excited to be here, and even more excited to have the special guest we have with us today.
Absolutely. We have the father of TFT Esports, the Magic the Gathering fanatic, and future pickleball world champion, Riot Sherman. Welcome to the show.
Thank you guys so much for having me. Unfortunately, I think my pickleball aspirations are rapidly deteriorating, but my F1 fantasy team is doing pretty well.
There you go. I heard that you get better at pickleball with age, so maybe there's hope.
Well, we'll see. I believe that I could, I'll have a resurgence in the next 10 years. Let's put it on that.
Makes sense. Today we're gonna have a little bit of a different episode because we have Sherman on the show. It's gonna be interesting because we're able to ask him tons of questions about TFT Esports and where we're all going. We're gonna talk about the general vision for that. We're gonna talk about the TFT Pro Circuit and the Paris Open, which, when we're recording this, it's Monday the 8th, so tickets went on sale for Challengers today and will be going on sale for Masters GM tomorrow. And so it's a great time, lots of hype around this, so we're excited to find out more. But as we get into it, Riot Sherman, first of all, is that your first name, Riot? And who are you, and what role do you have in the TFT world?
Yeah, I'm Michael Sherman. I've been at Riot for a little more than 11 years. Got my start doing college esports for Riot on League of Legends, worked on the LCS for a little bit, and then for the last couple of years, I've been heading up TFT Esports and also working on kind of like Riot's new properties, so doing some work on 2XKO and Riftbound as well.
So we have this time allotted to talk about TPC and Paris Open, like Jack said. I think it's worth it first to kind of take a step back and look at the product of competitive TFT as a whole. If anyone's been a fan for a long time, I think something that has always stood out is that competitive TFT has just changed so much, right? Since the early days of really figuring out what grassroots look like. Nowadays we have TPC, we have the opens. Like it just really has been a very volatile product. What is your overall vision for what competitive TFT should look like?
Yeah, at the very core of it, when I came into this role, there's this realization that a lot of TFT had kind of been built to try and emulate a lot of what other esports were doing, really focus on viewership, really focus on like these big kind of like qualifiers into big competitions. And it really kind of like felt like, it was falling short of that. And part of that was the pandemic and sort of everything. But the other was that like lots of people really wanted to compete. And so there was this idea of how can we make the ecosystem of TFT really focused on like competition and accessibility of competition being at the heart of that ecosystem. So everything that we've done has been towards this sort of vision of how can we make that more and more accessible and exciting and really mean something to people. As mentioned, that I come from Magic the Gathering. I've played card games my whole life. Like that whole thing of like going to a card shop, going to a regional, it's like all of those like just come from this, like, I love playing these types of strategy games. And like, if I said that watching was what was going to determine the success of it, it was totally like the wrong way to talk about the game and what it meant for people. And TFT has a lot of those similarities. So the Open was our first big step in that direction of trying to solidify that vision. The kind of like revamp of trials and cups were us trying to like build some consistency around the world so that we could push towards this greater vision. And then now TPC is us really addressing how do we support the top end? How do we make that aspirational path feel like it's actually exciting and something that people want to be participating in, so that as we kind of like ramp up the opportunities at the bottom end, at the couch end, that we really have an exciting path for people to go on to get there.
Yeah, and TFT is a very unique game, right? Based off of stuff like Magic the Gathering and some of these other card game things where you're going to a local store and doing all these things and playing in person. TFT is very unique in that, one, it's a game that never really had an esport with auto chess and all these different things, but also it's online. There's 8 players. You got to get 8 players playing at the same time, doing all these things. especially competitively, like when designing the pro circuit and these opens, what are some of the challenges and opportunities that your team faces to really pave the way for these esports events and then make them absolutely shine?
You really hit it on the nose with a few of things where it was like, when we look at the landscape of the infrastructure that exists to support a player free for all auto battler, there's so little. That is, if I wanted to go run a tournament myself tomorrow and there's 64 players competing in it, I know both of you probably have this experience. Like, I hope you know spreadsheets because you're going to be organizing the whole thing through that. There's not like an endemic community who's been doing this for 30 years to tap into to like help federate more of it out to the community. There's not a lot of these things that like you would want in a game at this scale and size. And normally for Riot as an example, because I'm doing this for 2xko right now, normally that's why you spend years kind of getting started with the esports strategy before the game is out, so you can make sure that that infrastructure and those pieces exist. But as you know, the TFT story game comes out in like 4 months. We didn't have any of that. Pandemic hit, and kind of like now the game is massive. And so there's a lot of catching up. I think that really helped us as we've kind of taken stock. There's a lot on the tooling end that we're really working to ramp up. You've seen our new Compete TFT website, which is really going to become the new competitive home. And as opposed to like a LoL esports where it's there to go watch, this is where you go to sign up. You'll go to participate. We're also working pretty heavily on how to kind of scale up our events in a way that feels like exciting and meaningful. So it really creates a lot of awesome opportunities, but it has its fair set of challenges when you're like, something as simple as, what do I run this tournament on? And the only option today is spreadsheets.
Yeah, I know there's been some future tech alluded to in a previous video about the future of trials and scaling up what that even looks like. So at the time of recording this, it's not public. We don't have to dive too deep into that, but we can move on to TPC. That's something we do want to talk about now that we've talked about the infrastructure of the IP a bit. So TPC has been so far very successful. People really love it. Obviously 32 players from each region being featured for the entirety of the set has been something that people have been asking for a long time. Something that's very unique about it, though, is the promotion relegation system that you guys landed on. So how did you actually end up on this current iteration of TPC, this model?
It started as if I go back 2 years, 3 years almost, when I came in and I looked around the world as to kind of the infrastructure around TFT, every region was approaching competitive TFT differently. There was different ways to qualify for regionals in every region. There was some of it was online, some of it was in person. The clear thing was everything was totally different from each other. And the only region I think that like had really laid some strong infrastructure that I think gave a lot of consistency was actually Europe. And we looked a lot to like the European model that had already been set up. That led us to, I want to bring everybody together. I want to like bring all the regional leads, everybody who's working on this. I want to get us all to like get in a room and say, yes, there are things that are unique about each of our regions, but it's so painful for us to collaborate and do cool things together if everybody is off in their own direction. So the first foundation of that was, hey, we're going to need to like get our models just in general to the same place. Once we got that in place last summer, was really when we started kind of noodling on this deeper conversation of the pro circuit. And I'll tell you that Pro Circuit was first drafted with some of the cool stuff we're working on for trials also in mind. It was literally all this one, what's the form of the ecosystem look like, where anybody can kind of like come through the ranks into it. And there's this really awesome thing to compete in, because we know you spend all set grinding. You're like, okay, I've hit challenger and ranked. I've now qualified for trials or cups. I've now done that 3 more times all throughout the set. I've then qualified for regionals. I've then made it to the TAC round. I've had my best set ever, and congratulations, you get to go do all of that over again in 2.5 weeks. And it just is like, for some of these players, it's like you spend the whole set grinding to just get back to the place where you can kind of like, quote, prove yourself or kind of show what you're worth. And we wanted to get out of this mentality that the only thing of value out there was like really was just winning a tack round or doing well in a tack round. And so kind of trying to create meaningful full layers below that are both exciting for that core group of players. Like Dish Soap should not have to go through everything he goes through every set in the old system, and this kind of gives him an area to really compete. It also should feel worth it for people to come up. And then finally, the third audience of like fans. Like there's so much energy and excitement around watching TPC because it was just felt like the quality of competition and expression that you were getting from maybe the tack round at the end of the set, you're now getting 1 month into the set.
I mean, if this weekend or 2 weekends ago, I guess at this point, was anything to foreshadow what that looks like going forward, it's going to be electric every time these players step up and play. And being able to watch everyone and reactions and all these things with people needing to stream and cameras and all these things is fantastic. I love it.
Very candidly, most of the time when we roll out changes at the regional level, it's come with lots of double-edged swords. You can pierce it through one way or another. I will say I think this has been the most resounding, like, positive change that we've ever rolled out to the regional ecosystem, and I think that it's really awesome to see how that lands.
No doubt. And you said that this has been in the works for about over a year now, last summer. What were some of like the other iterations of TPC? Maybe some good ideas, some bad ideas that didn't make it? I'm curious to know.
Yeah, I think we're still nailing down exactly some of the concepts for like how we want to evolve Cup 2. I have thrown out and have been rapidly shut down by my team for lots of really good reasons. Ideas that, like, what if Cup 2 was 4v4 and at the end of Cup 1 you draft players from the top 8, draft the remaining 24. There's been like some crazy ideas thrown out there. And look, I'm not saying that things like that could never happen, but like then I immediately get thrown out as like, great, so you're now the one player that speaks no languages that the rest of your team speaks, and you're like absolutely useless and you can't do anything. And it's like, okay, fair. So I think that where we've kind of talked about a lot of things that we want to, where we've thrown out the craziest and like most far-fetched ideas has been what do we do to kind of mix things up in Cup 2 while also trying to make that feel really strong. I've also thrown out things like, what if we played entire cups on revival sets?
Oh no.
I do think that I would be eaten alive for that one. So a lot, and I say all these things, I'm sure some people are like, what is this guy talking about? We say all these things so we can go through and explore and actually see if there's anything of value in there. Because I think a lot of this actually, like TPC itself, started out with me bringing kind of like this flow chart to my team and being like, I would like for you guys to go and start exploring if there's something here. And I'm not saying that we do this. I'm saying that there is something here that should be sought out in more depth.
I want to circle back to something you had brought up before in the very beginning, where you had said that one of the difficulties of working in TFT Esports is that you had very little to draw upon. We don't have existing infrastructure for hosting tournaments. When it came to developing TPC, did you look at any of the infrastructure of other, traditional sports, other esports? Was there anything in particular that inspired what it is that we landed on for TPC?
Yeah, I mean, obviously having a promotion relegation system is such a, is something we've taken from other games and other sports pretty directly. But I think a lot of it was like inherently TFT in the way we were kind of looking at it and really trying to make sure. I think one of the challenges that we've done in the past is the more we compared ourselves to other games or trying to do it like other games, the more we ended up in some place that wasn't like fitting the needs of TFT.
That's interesting that, I mean, obviously there's some promotion relegation systems across sports, but not having it obviously influences and gives some ideas because there's ideas everywhere, but now taking it to TFT and really making it its own because TFT is a brand new thing and I'm excited to see that. Another brand new thing that you guys are bringing this set is an update to the trials format, which is that first level of the cup, trying to get people from the couch, working their way up through the system. At the time of recording this, we've gotten like a little bit of details that you guys did in your dev drop, but do you have anything else, any more information you can share with us?
Yeah, so why don't I talk a little bit about like what our process is here, what we're trying to achieve with it. If you go back to set 11, when we first rolled out the updated kind of like ecosystem for bringing all the regions together, Trials was 512 players. It was a disaster, to say the least. Players were dropping out after one bad game. You had a bunch of people who had never competed before. You had like really not great match quality with like bringing together that many players. It was really slow because you have to wait for all 64 matches to compete to just like reshuffle the lobbies. There's so many operational challenges with that, and we ultimately backed that down from 512 players back down to 256 right after. We really want to give players the opportunity to compete. When I look at kind of how players even like grind for ladder snapshots for the open, where it's like I, as a Masters player, could finally go compete in something really cool. Like it means so much to have like that sort of opportunity. The current ranked ladder system relies on such a grind. And so we really wanted to see, is there some valuable way that we can qualify players into this ecosystem that isn't just grinding hundreds of hours of ranked? And so that's led us. The big question we have to solve is how can we quickly determine whether a player has the capability to perform really well or not. So this new system is really focused on that. It is how can we get how can over a 5-game sample can we basically like get an estimate of your ceiling, and then we can go put that into a larger tournament to really determine. And so all of that's to say, what we're going to try out this year is our first swing at it. We think that there's some meat to it. We've tried it out on paper. Getting enough people together to like really test it in a meaningful way is really hard. We want to build an entire like system around this format and structure, but we also don't want to do that without like, we don't want to overcook here on something that doesn't work for players. So this first one is really focused on like, we're going to go just to one region. We're going to go, we're actually adding more ladder slots into that cup just as like a fail safe. We're qualifying more players from cup 1 into that cup as a fail safe. We want to kind of like use this as a way to experiment. And we think the stakes of it are important to really make sure we're getting high quality feedback from people and that the participant pool is really valuable. We think it'll be really fun. It is trying to solve some of those tech challenges. Like for the first time, you will not have to submit screenshots. Score reporting will be automatic. Crazy, right? And so, there's a future state with some things that we're looking at where like, can we skip lobby creation altogether? Can I just make it so there's a ready check on a website and you're logged into game and it'll just pop you into your game? Some of the stuff, if you guys remember in Macau, we would just like, you wouldn't go create a lobby. It would just like drop you into game. How could we do that at scale from home? So there's some cool ideas here of like how we could really streamline the experience. And then once that is really in place, it's like, can we build an ecosystem around it? Can we run tournaments for different modes? Can we run things that don't qualify for the cup that are just like for fun things on different weekends? There's a lot of ideas in that space, but we need a format that can be run in a short period of time to really like give that experience to players.
Just a very quick follow-up on this. I do want to ask, is the intention with trials to expand beyond the traditional cutoff of the like challenger, GM, masters player, depending on what region you're from, or are there plans to expand that into the lower ranks as well?
I mean, this first trial that we're doing has no ranked requirements.
Wow.
And so our hope is that anybody who wants to participate can give it a shot. And I think that there is this idea. It reminds me of going to like a local game store. It's like, there are some days where I just have a really great run in playing Magic at a store, and it like feels really good. Am I ready to go take on the world? Absolutely not. But I would love for players who have that have that opportunity to spike a short event and for it to feel like it meant something and kind of like give them a place to move on to.
This sounds incredibly exciting. Anyway, I'm so excited for the possibilities that does mean. And I know that so many other people listening will be excited about that too, because we have players all across the spectrum of, I just want to be a fan of TFT. And also I am an engaged challenger player, but now we can all play together in this trials format. It's going to be incredibly exciting. And so with all the changes that have been happening, Do you ever feel like maybe we will get to a stable format for TFT, or do you think we'll always be changing and iterating and finding something new to try in the esports landscape?
Look, I think Crown has had some changes, but is overall like is in a pretty, I would consider it a steady state. I think it would be crazy for us not to say that TPC won't need some changes. We just don't know. We've got to see it play out. We need to hear feedback from players. I don't think the cup's changing much, and then there's obviously a lot of things we're trying to change at the trials level. So like a individual layer, yeah, there's still changes in there. At a macro, kind of like how does it all work? I think that this is really where we want to be, and now it's kind of dialing in the individual pieces and trying to solve some of these more macro problems. But we feel like we are approaching where we want to be with TFT.
All right, let's move on to Paris Open coming up this December. Ticket sales went on sale today, so everyone has got this top of mind. So just blanket question, want to throw it out there. What are you most excited for at the Paris Open?
I think there's two things. One is just the expanded tournament and the format that's going into that. I think there are some crazy things that we're really trying to pull off in there. Like top 64 Checkmate is going to probably be one of the wildest things that we've ever done and tried. I'm not, that could go. We think that could be awesome. We think that could also flop on its face, but we want to give it a shot. I just want to say, obviously, we're open to change. We've never, on that one, if it doesn't work out after year one. The second thing is we really are trying to figure out how to bring more of the experience to players at home. I think when you look at the Open, you guys have both been to Opens, and when you were there, the experience is awesome. Like it just feels like you're surrounded by the community. You're like, I've heard so many people talk about like going to the Open gives them the energy of like being part of this community. How do we like translate more of that to being at home? And there's kind of been two things that we've looked at. One, we don't think, and this is not a shade to, I've got two casters in the room. We want to like reimagine how our main broadcast helps bring that home. Because first, like co-streamers are doing that event at scale. And so for us to be like, we have the best, most exciting matchup on the main stage that everyone should care about and like should be a core driver of every conversation, it's just wrong. It's not the way that TFT players watch. So a lot of what we're going to be doing on the main stage on day 1 and 2 is trying to come up with things that are unique and bespoke. Kind of think like Carousel of Chaos on day 3. How can we bring more of those types of like programming elements to the main stage earlier in the competition, so that like as a fan who's never watched an Open or has never watched an esports event, a TFT esports event, how can we kind of bring them in on like, hey, but there's this awesome, it's called Mastermind, and here's these two players who are going to be playing Mastermind on the main stage that like they're big names that you've heard of, and we're going to be covering that. And so we want to do that sort of like ramp into it and really give players the full experience.
That's awesome. I'm excited to watch, be there, be a part of it. It's going to be awesome. What lessons did you guys take from Macau, from Vegas, that really influenced the way that you guys are planning for Paris?
I think the biggest lessons have always been a sort of like the network effect of this event is so strong. Like it really matters. Mm-hmm. How do you bring in all the right people, the right creators, the right players, kind of like making sure that the infrastructure really supports all of that. Expanding the tournament helps make sure that we can do that it's not at the expense of these other groups. I think we've like solidified this sort of internal vision based off the last two, that the Open is like the biggest party of the year. I think a lot of people want to jump into it. Is this Worlds for TFT? And the answer is no, but it is the greatest party in TFT all year. And that party needs to have certain like elements for everybody to really enjoy it. Like tournament needs to be fun. It needs to be a great event. But we've really kind of doubled down on how do we make sure that this is like the ultimate celebration of TFT for TFT players by the end of the year.
The news that made, I think, everybody the most excited upon release of information about Paris was the increase in the player field, like you're talking about right now. 50% increase, which is a huge increase. If anyone has never run an event, I mean, we run 32 to 64 person tournaments in Tri-State, and those are a logistical nightmare. Running a over 700 person tournament across with players of various languages as well. Like just logistically, it's just not easy. Can you talk about, I guess, the process required to confidently increase the player field of the Paris Open?
Yeah. I think there's two things. One is getting sharper on how long does it actually take to run different things. In Vegas, everything ran way faster than we had estimated. And this is like sometimes that's awesome, but sometimes you're too far ahead that things start breaking. Where you're like, "Hey, broadcast team, we need you to fill for an hour, and I have nothing to give you." Because like things ran so far in advance, we can't actually find people who should be here now because they don't think they need to play for another hour. I'm not going to penalize people because we ran ahead of schedule. The in Macau, obviously, like we ran into like pretty substantial tech challenges, and so it's like figuring out what's the root cause of those. How do we kind of really re-operationalize ourselves back into to form? So a couple of to really like tactically answer your question, ref quality is huge. Are you in a region in a place that has like a kind of a history of open bracket competition? Who like your job is not to, as a ref more than anything, is like, are you in butts and seats? I need you back from the bathrooms. I need to get this game started. Like you need to have people who understand how to do that. And like in Vegas, we had the top people from the MLG era of games doing a lot of that. And luckily, like Europe also has that sort of competition culture still in it. And so there's a lot of great refs to pull from there. The second is a technology. Like our technology for organizing the tournament has to be really strong. So far, I'm really excited by how even just ticket sales have gone. Like because last year we had tons of complaints around like the platform falling over during ticket sales, and this is the same platform that will run the competition. So it's important that those things don't fall over. And then the last thing is just making sure the format has room for error. And so a lot of what we have built is like, how do we gain back time and how do we like simplify some things? Checkmate also has like exciting entertainment things, but it also prevents you from having to regenerate rounds and like complete matches and shuffle people around 2 times. So it helps you smooth through your day two. So it's a lot of looking for those efficiencies that'll really help us run a smooth tournament.
Man, personally, I'm just super excited for Paris. I think it's going to be awesome to see, again, more people be invited to the party, not just as spectators, but as competitors, because that's, for a lot of people, an excuse to be there. Like, hey, I'm competing. I have this chance to win a bunch of money. I have this chance to do all these things. And now that more people can play, more people want to come to the party. So I am so incredibly excited. I know Gangly is too. Looking long-term, though, Sherman, what does success look like? How do we define success for TFT Esports for the next few years, even currently, as we look at the Paris Open?
So we look at the Paris Open, I think success for us is really like in a few forms. This hits at a pretty major moment in the set release calendar for us every year. If you look at Remix Rumble and like the Vegas Open, if you look at Into the Arcane and the Macao Open, these things are happening at a time when like Riot is trying to fire on all cylinders to really create like the biggest moment in TFT of the year. And that's because like we really want these big sets to be these big moments that people remember, that they have like really strong attachment to, and that it also helps like kind of fuel the excitement around the game for years to come. And so I think about it as two things. We just want people to like, when we drop these big sets that we've kind of gotten into the rhythm now of doing at the end of the year, we want to make sure that it is like people are so excited and just like ready to play TFT. The second is we want to create like, it feels kind of cheesy to say, we want to create like lifelong TFT fans. And like having sort of like a big cultural moment around TFT is such a strong way to do that. Something that really makes it feel like the community is such an awesome thing to be a part of, that people like crave to be able to be a part of the whole ecosystem, is a huge part for us. So if we can do those two things well at the Open, TFT Esports will be in a great place.
Well, I really appreciate your time. Obviously, you are a busy man with lots on your plate, getting ready for Paris Open and monitoring all the tickets that are going on sale and making sure the website doesn't go awry, and it has not. So well done to you guys in the team. Super, super excited for what's to come. Gangly, anything you want to say to wrap us up?
Thank you to Sherman. Listen, if this is your first time listening to Sherman, Sherman and I have gotten the chance to speak over the course of multiple years in different settings. And I just want to say that Sherman is one, a very thoughtful person. And I think two, most importantly, like very compassionate to what people have to say about the scene. There was a moment a couple of years ago where Sherman and I were at an event together, and he took like 20-30 minutes out of his day to say, like, hey, let's go for a walk. We walked around the entire venue, and we're just talking about TFT. He's asking me questions about how I feel about the scene and stuff. And, you know, listen, I might be like a commentator working for Riot, but in the end of the day, like, my opinion is certainly not one that Riot is consistently asking for. And that's a moment that meant a lot to me. And I think that's a good indication of the kind of person that Sherman is. So, yeah, if this is your first time getting to hear Sherman, I just want to say that you should make sure to support this guy as much as you can, because we're lucky to have him in TFT. And clearly has got some great ideas and a great team behind him that's trying very hard to make TFT Esports flourish and be exciting and bring a new frontier in Riot Esports. So yeah, thanks, Sherman, for coming on. I'm glad we got to kind of dive into all this with you.
I do not know how to follow that up. I really appreciate it. And so much of the drive and excitement for me actually just comes from seeing all this. Like, this is truly a ecosystem built with the community and kind of alongside it. And so it's awesome that you guys feel that way, and I hope that everything that we're continuing to kind of like build on and try and cook up for TFT continues to really kind of push the scene forward and get everyone excited.
Yeah, absolutely. So thankful for your time and being willing to come on the show and talk about all these things. So from us at the Rolldown, thank you so much. For those watching, hope you enjoyed. We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, guys.